Once you've found credible sources, the next step is reading them and taking notes to use in your research paper. This may sound like an easy step, but a lot of writers find that note-taking is a complex and challenging task. This video is going to address some of the common challenges and questions that come up during note-taking. One of the most challenging parts about note-taking is finding a system that works best for you. If you Google note-taking systems, you'll find plenty of examples of different methods. If you haven't done that before, I suggest doing it. It's helpful to see how other people take notes. Some common note-taking systems are annotation of the text, Cornell notes, outlining, making a mind map, or using tables and charts. What's going to determine which system you use or which pieces of multiple systems you put together is the content you need and your own preferences. It takes experimentation and trial and error. Here's the thing, you must experiment. You have to make mistakes. You have to try note-taking systems that don't work out in order for you to find the ones that do work. It's going to be messy and it's going to feel frustrating and it's going to seem like you've wasted time. It's not a waste of time because if you don't find note-taking strategies that work for you, it's just going to get harder and more complicated over time. Papers get longer, research gets more involved. Figuring out how to take notes that work for you is a crucial academic skill that you will use for literally the rest of your life. It's worth it to make a mess now and to find out what works best. I wish I could give you a magic answer when it comes to which system to use. I wish I could tell you that there's one note-taking system that works for everyone. I could teach it to you and we could all move on. But I can't do that because I'd be lying. I can tell you some things that I think make a good system though. A good system is one that helps you categorize content. Let's say you're writing a research paper about koalas. As you read, you may find things about the koala's habitat, and in other parts of the paper, you might find something about their diet or their physical characteristics or the threats to its survival. Breaking those into categories where you can easily put new facts as you go makes it easier to read your notes again later and find what you're looking for. A good system always, I'm going to say that again because it's important, always puts quotes in quotation marks so you can remember later that you're not the one who wrote it. This helps you avoid plagiarism. A good note-taking system also keeps track of which source you're writing about and makes note of page numbers. Don't take initial notes for multiple sources on the same page. Use a different page for each source that you have because that'll keep you from getting them mixed up later so that when you go to write your paper, you don't have to go, oh, which source do I need to cite? Which one did this come from? If you have them in order in your notes, then you won't have that confusion. Finally, a good note-taking system helps you draw connections between your sources at the end so that you can see where they overlap and where there's disagreement. Another challenge of research is that you're likely going to find repeated information. This is especially true for early research assignments where you're mostly researching a topic that's already well known with lots of sources. If you're writing a paper about, say, George Washington, many sources are going to repeat the same facts: his birthday, when he became president, famous quotes, the battles he was in. You'll find those things over and over and over again. Do you have to write them down every time? Which source do you cite it in when you find it? Let's think about the best way to handle this. Technically speaking, if a fact can be found in multiple sources, it's considered common knowledge and doesn't have to be cited. So something like George Washington's birthday isn't really an official citation that you would need to put into your paper because it's common knowledge. Lots and lots and lots of different sources will have that information. But that rule is mostly for advanced researchers who are only giving those facts as brief background knowledge. When you're a middle school or high school student doing an early research project, your teachers gave you that assignment to make sure that you understand how to find credible sources and how to cite where you found your information. So the best way to handle information that's repeated in multiple places is to start with your best source. Take a look at the sources that you have and decide which one is the most thorough, detailed, and complete. Make that one your priority. Take very thorough, detailed notes from that source. Use it as your base whenever you need a general fact about your topic. Cite that source first. Then move on to your other sources and see what they add that your main source left out. Maybe source 2 really talks about George Washington's childhood. So if you have information you want to give about his childhood, you might cite source 2. Maybe source 3 does a really good job of describing a statue to George Washington erected years after his death. So when you move on to talking about how George Washington has been remembered, you might use a quote from that source. But for all of the general details, you would stick with your source 1, your main source. Another common problem I hear from students is that they take too many notes. They highlight everything on the page, which is basically the same as highlighting nothing. If this is a problem for you, here are some tips. First, the best thing you can do is read everything twice. Read once for understanding and a second time to record notes. You don't have to read all the way to the end of the whole source on the first read and then go back and reread the whole thing again. Instead, you can read and highlight one paragraph or one page at a time. But do read it twice. Read it once to understand and a second time to go through and capture what's most important. It'll be a lot easier to tell what's important when you already have a good understanding of what's on the page. Next, remember the tip earlier about having a base source. Do your best source first. This will allow you to skip highlighting repeat information in future sources. Also, remember to give each source a job. After you've given them a quick glance to figure out kind of what the main ideas of each source are, you'll probably be able to tell what the main focus is for each one. If a source has a section or a concept that the other sources don't have, you're probably going to want to focus your notes on that area. Another tip is to focus on highlighting names, dates, and statistics, which are probably the kinds of things you're going to want to be able to find later. Finally, if you're hoping to find some great quotes you can use in your paper, use a special highlighter color just for direct quotes. Even if you're highlighting them in your own notes rather than in the book, this will help you find them later.